Hello, everyone that's out there, and thank you so much for participating in the SULC 2021 Esports Experience. This is the panel, and today we're going to be speaking on the future of esports and gaming law. Today, we have some awesome panelists that will be speaking to you on everything in regards to law, and I hope you can get any question answered. And if you have any other questions that you need answered, please feel free to reach out to these individuals outside of this panel. Reach out to them on LinkedIn, reach out to them on any of the social media platforms. I'm sure they're going to give you the insights on how to directly connect with them. But the goal is to be able to learn. This industry is moving so fast, and it's so cool to have opportunities that Southern University Law Center has provided. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it by letting individuals be able to, all the panelists, be able to introduce themselves. So starting with Miss Dr. Lawson-Williams, give a quick introduction of yourself, and then we'll carry it on to the next individual.
Greetings. I'm Dr. Bernadette Lawson-Williams, full tenured professor of sport management at Johnson C. Smith University, where I also serve as founder and advisor of the first ever HBCU esports and gaming trifecta. I also completed coursework at North Carolina Central's School of Law.
That's awesome. So definitely, Justin, thank you so much for being a participant on this. Give them a quick introduction of yourself, and then we'll carry it over.
I'm Justin Jacobson. I'm an esports attorney, and I work with pro gamers and streamers and different teams. And I'm also manager of Ford Esports Gaming and Talent Division, where we work with about 20 different personalities in the gaming world.
That's awesome. Mr. Nepomuk, please let the individuals know out there in the world whom you are and what are you, why are you so special?
Hey, thanks for having me. My name is Nepomuk. I'm from Germany. We founded the first research center for esports law and the worldwide biggest network for esports research, the Esports Research Network. I teach in one of the biggest study courses regarding esports management, and we work with G2 Esports and other big clans and teams from the esports industry.
That's awesome. And then last but not least, Mr. Moritz, please let the individuals know whom exactly you are.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm a lawyer from Germany. I'm at the law firm SKW Swartz, a business group, but I founded and had our esports task force for 2 years now, a bit more than 2 years. And it's been awesome so far. Thank you for having me again.
For sure, for sure. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. The first question I would love to ask is, this is for every individual that's on this panel right now, is how do you see the industry changing when it comes down from a law perspective? I know there's a lot of things that's transpiring in space, and a lot of individuals have so many terms that they coined the way the industry is moving right now. How do you see it changing, and what do you see your impact in the changing space within esports and gaming? Let's start with Dr. Lawson-Williams.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think the beginning of it all starts with where it is now. We know that we live in a litigious society. And so just as esports is a microcosm of society, every aspect of society is actually an esport. So from the unethical side of esport law, all the way to, people actually making a positive impact. So I think part of it is really just analyzing the field from a standpoint of, we're now with the pandemic and a lot of virtual competitions. And so previously, prior to the pandemic, a lot of the esports tournaments were actually held in person. And so I think from just a legal standpoint, some of the legalities that were associated with in-person experiences have now been to some degree diminished now that we're actually gaining more online. And so I think that is what my perspective is. The contribution that I actually have is to create programs that are continuing to educate our students regarding various aspects of esport management and esport law.
That's awesome. So take it away, Justin, kind of give your perspectives on how you see the changes. I've seen you create content, books. It's like, when I think of individuals, I'm like, okay, Justin is like, he's in it, he's around it, he knows what's going on. And I'm always curious to know, what is your take in regards to the ever so changing industry from a law perspective?
Well, I appreciate the kind words, Danny. And I think what we really kind of noticed and what's kind of really happening is with more money and more kind of bigger companies getting invested in it, it's starting to become a bit more professionalized. Some of the things that kind of happened before with, teams not doing what they're supposed to, organizers not doing what they're supposed to, are starting to kind of work their way out. And it really kind of comes with just the more professionalization overall, whether it's, more attorneys, accountants, teachers kind of bringing this curriculum. So I think that's kind of been the biggest transition, is it moving more towards the other entertainment spaces. And that's kind of, where I see continue going.
That's perfect. So Nepomuk, what is your thought process in regards to the change of the industry?
Yeah, I'm with Justin on, the industry is steadily progressing, it's professionalizing, but not only the big firms as sponsors getting into the space, but the publishers as well. They change their way of thinking about esports. They tend to have their own leagues, run their own leagues, like a publisher model versus the third-party model, for example, with the ESL. Esports is no longer just a marketing tool for the respective game. It starts generating its own revenue, standing on its own 2 feet. There's just a lot of publisher movement there. More certainty for sponsors, of course, with franchise leagues, but also sponsors not being the one big driver money-wise. So a lot of clients and teams thinking about team skins, which can be bought by fans. What kind of reminds one of the financing model of the international Dota 2 event, like crowdfunding. But there are a lot of questions as well, legal-wise, surrounding that. So big things happening. Mobile esports, virtual reality esports.
It's happening. Yes, for sure. And Moritz, take us away. What's your thought process based off of the other panelists and what they've stated? Do you have anything that you've seen that's maybe different, something that you can add value to the actual viewers that are participating today?
Well, a lot has been said already. I think the industry is maturing a lot for sure. You can see from other industries. You don't have to invent the wheel all over again. But structural wise, there's a lot of uncertainty yet. You see associations, federations prop up.
That's awesome.
Still looking for their place. The ecosystem needs a bit more of a sustainable economic system. You can see sponsorship is the biggest revenue stream. And in crisis like last year, when the live events fall off, you can see headlines like North going out of business because their investors jump off, or Schalke thinking about. There's lots to do.
Yes, for sure.
Future ahead.
That's awesome. Great to be able to get that insight. So I'm going to start with Justin. If you had to give a quick definition of what is esports law from your perspective?
So yeah, esports law is kind of this law focused on assisting professional gamers and streamers and coaches and casters and teams and organizations and event organizers and really just any company working in the space. And, similar to sports and entertainment law, it's kind of a bunch of different legal disciplines, including, contract law and licensing, intellectual property law, such as copyrights and trademarks, business and corporate law. You have employment and labor law issues, immigration law, tax law, especially when you're looking at the international considerations. And then you have the FTC and, social media disclosures and kind of how endorsements and testimonials kind of fit into everything.
That's awesome. So, Dr. Lawson-Williams, you work with the esports collegiate program right now. If you had a crystal ball within the next 5 years, where would you like to be able to see the biggest impact in regards to law for your particular students? Like, what do you see as a value for them? And even if they say that I may not be the professional gamer that I'm hoping to be, I want to be able to experience law. What do you see? How would you guide those particular individuals towards this industry? And how do you see it looking in the next 5 years?
Yes, well, you see that I'm wearing our JCSU esports jersey now. And so I think we all understand the branding that's involved with our esports teams and esports programs. And so I'm proud to be a part of helping to brand the JCSU esports and gaming trifecta. And so I'm telling my students all the time, they want to know why they can't just use JCSU, but why they actually have to spell out Johnson C. Smith University esports. And a lot of that actually has to do with trademark, making sure that you have a brand, trademarking it, ensuring that no one is actually infringing upon your trademark. So that's probably the biggest, level of understanding that I want our students to have in terms of being impactful to the industry, understanding how to respect, another person's brand or trademark. And just to give you a legal example, I'm sure many of us in this room have actually been familiar with the case between Riot Games actually suing a entity called Riot Squad. And it all had to do with the fact that that particular group was using Riot's colors, and a lot of the features of their logo look pretty similar to Riot Games' logo. And it made sense for Riot Games to actually pursue them legally. Because again, if someone is dealing with or infringing upon your brand, then I think we all naturally will have to make sure that we're seeking some type of retribution or compensation. And so I was pleased to see that case actually come to close. I'm not sure where it is now, but certainly in Googling it, just to see where it is, it really is a profound case as we talk about intellectual property and how that actually intersects with esports law.
That's awesome. So Brandon, trademarks, very critical for your students to understand the value of their own brand just as much, even when they leave, the particular organization and institution. So that's very good insight that you provided. So I like to go over to Moritz. Right now, you're seeing so much within the space. What are some of the most pressing legal issues that are transpiring within this industry right now that if individuals out there, they're like, man, I really want to get into law, this is somewhere they can actually start to focus in on to make sure that the industry as a whole is growing in the most successful way possible?
Oh, I think there are lots of, Justin said what esports law is. It's more like a whole industry and where you can specialize in different sections. In Germany or in Europe, about regulation where esports actually fit in, these bring new regulations, or will it be accepted into other already existing regulations? Famous, is esports like sport? Is esports sports, or is it something else entirely? And there is a big player contract wise. If you look to the UK, they had this Uber decision, which basically plays into the role if you have a freelance contract or is it more employment law. And we will see a lot of third-party gaming industry in the future. And I think there should be fits for everyone.
And maybe I can add to that, because it depends on the market and the ecosystem in question, of course. But there are some really pressing issues, like the publisher situation, antitrust competition law. We've got clauses by which a publisher may unilaterally amend the contract, or economical sustainability, joint selling of media rights, like pooling media rights related to the clients by one single entity, and then you sell it to an exclusive partner. And then no one else gets to touch it, and probably most of the times there aren't any public tender procedures, which is a big thing in the EU, for example, with the Champions League in soccer. Or Justin just named labor and employment law. First of all, is labor law applicable? I mean, in the US, if you remember the whole Tfue versus FaZe Clan situation with the gamer agreement, that's not a labor law regarding to the US law, but in Germany, it 100% would be. It doesn't matter what the contract states. It would be labor law, and that's in the whole EU, because like 80% of German, 80% of labor law in the EU is EU labor law, like implemented directives from the EU. This is a huge thing. Visa, Justin named it as well. Broxa and Team Liquid. Team Liquid won every split. Then Broxa could not come into, they did not have a lot of preparation time with the visa. They were second to last in the next split. And afterwards, with the preparation time, they won again. Like, there are a million questions. Gambling law, for example, a lot of questions.
That's awesome. So to carry it right back at you, Nepomuk, with the instances, all of these issues have transpired, but they started with a contract. Some didn't even start with a contract, but most started with a contract. So talk about some advice that you will provide to that of teams, organizations, and athletes when it comes down to securing a perfect, nothing is perfect in this world, but securing the best optimal contract for this player, team, or organization. What would be some advice that you would provide?
One thing also Justin already mentioned is in pro esports, the players are athletes and content creators, like influencers. So there are a ton of things you need to have in your contract. Additional obligations like streaming, marketing, media, personal rights, and IP. Can the clan like log into my personal account on Twitter? I mean, is it possible? What about minors? When you're a minor, there's a lot of protective law. Is there some way, shape, or form the contract could not be an employment contract without this high standards? Work environment, like occupational safety. There are just a ton. So you need the sports aspect and the content creator, influencer, artist aspect. So I wouldn't go to a just sports lawyer. You need both of these sides, 100%.
That's awesome.
Just to build off that, something that, I think is really important, and what I've noticed doing a lot of these player deals is kind of what you have to do in it, whether it's, salary increases or, scalability, some kind of incentives. And I think that's, one of the biggest things to look out for. As you start growing in this industry, things can happen out of nowhere and you could really skyrocket really rapidly, and you have to prepare for that. And that's kind of where the contract needs to fit the situation. As you mentioned Tfue a little bit earlier, clearly what the deal was when he signed it and years later didn't really fit the situation. So I think, it's important for you to understand how things might change and be able to kind of build that into your agreement.
If I can also add, you want to ensure that the contract is bilateral and not unilateral. And I think if I'm correct in the case that you all are referring to, that was actually one of the issues, that contract was unilateral and it was more for the advantage of that particular organization. And so just ensuring that, again, there are no clauses regarding perpetuity. We were actually working with a company to secure a partnership, and our president actually hired an attorney to review that particular content license agreement. And there was a note of perpetuity in there. And I caught that. I said, oh no, there is no way that we're going to guarantee that this content is going to be available to this particular agency into perpetuity. So a lot of it just has to do with understanding the legal terminology. And if you do not understand it, making sure that resources are available to hire an attorney.
That's awesome. So carrying it right back to you, Dr. Lawson-Williams. Speaking on those resources, if you're an individual, particularly, this is SULC, a lot of students that are involved, and there's a lot of students around the globe right now that are interested in law and esports. What are some of those resources? How do you pool your resources? How do you learn? And I know we're all learning on this panel right now. What are some other opportunities that you look for to be able to learn to, keep your skills great? And what advice would you give to other individuals out there to be just as inspired to learn from those same resources as you are?
I think it all starts with passion and interest. So I think you would actually have to have an interest in esports and gaming. You don't have to be a gamer, because there are many esports enthusiasts who are supporters of esports and developers of content, but they're not actually gamers. So we also want to consider them as a part of this entire spectrum. But it also has to do with education. If you're seeking the opportunities to become educated, to gain knowledge, to enrich your interest in your knowledge base, then you want to start with the curriculum. If there is a esports course or gaming course in your local area or at your university, you certainly want to tap into that course, even if it's just an introductory level course. So a lot of times, those opportunities are presented through those courses for you to gain experiential learning experiences. And I think that's where it starts.
Yes. Anybody want to follow up on that?
I think a lot of it is trying to, network and try to get experience in it and really understanding it. And one of those things where they say you just got to do it. You have to kind of get in it. And once you start being a part of it and learning it, interacting with people, you start to really understand it a little bit better. I think you can look at it from the academic side, but until you're actually in it and starting to see the practical nature of it, that's kind of when you really get it.
Exactly.
This is why we work with G2 Esports and other players, like practical players in the industry, because it just doesn't make sense to talk about some legal questions which are not pressing, who nobody cares about. They may be interesting, but it won't help the industry develop in a healthy way. So there's really this one-on-one it's a welcoming industry. Talk to the people. Like most of the time, they will answer.
Yeah. So right. Go for it.
I was going to add, for those individuals who are interested in the esports and gaming industry, but possibly don't have access to an institution, they can always contact Danny Martin and request information or take some of your educational content that you provide through exposure. And so, I think that that's a starting point. In fact, I actually referred one of my former students to contact you.
Yes,
He reached out to me about esports and gaming. And I told him that you would be the person. He didn't necessarily want to enroll into a course where he would have to, be graded and submit assignments, but he absolutely was very thirsty for the knowledge. And so I referred him to contact you, and I hope he has done so.
Yes, he definitely has. So definitely supremely thank you for that. And so for the next question, let's take it to Justin. So Justin, well, I know we spoke on the FaZe Clan, we spoke on legal disputes, and typically that can be like the, be wary of these disputes. Talk about some disputes that you've seen that the individual, whether it's the player or the organization, actually did right. Like you were just like, wow, they are smart, and it's good that they did this because they protected themselves. Talk about some of those if you have any of those instances.
I mean, I don't know how many, especially on the lower tier teams. I would say the top tier 1 team, because they're really backed by big institutions at this point, have really kind of gotten their business to another level. I think when you're starting to deal with, the tier 2 to tier 3 and some of the lower teams that are starting, you get into a lot of issues with them not paying players, them not playing it on time, event organizers maybe that aren't ESL or DreamHack, smaller ones not paying it or not paying it on time. And, it kind of starts to cause an issue where, a team owner is expecting to get X amount for a tournament, and he's supposed to use that to then pay you. And then that doesn't come in, or it comes in late, and, really kind of sets off a chain reaction. And, the players usually are the ones that don't, kind of get the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
And I think that that's, another thing that this kind of builds into is the players kind of signing agreements and not really understanding what it means, both, short term and long term. Like I've seen some agreements where the team can terminate it whenever they want and the player can never terminate it. Well, I don't even know if that's necessarily enforceable. Mm-hmm. I saw 10 different players sign this agreement, and they didn't really have an answer for why they signed it. And it just baffled my mind that you would sign, a 10, 15, whatever page agreement, not really understand it. And, I think that's a pretty common thing I'm starting to see. And, one of the biggest issues that's happening.
Yes, for sure.
And to build on that, if you're a player, I mean, Tfue, like the whole White Knight situation, Tfue is not anyone. He's one of the biggest content creator on this planet. But if you're a young person and you're trying to get into the space, you don't want to be the bad apple, right? You don't want to be the one who's like, no, I'm going to fight for my rights, because no team will ever touch you again. And this is also a pressing issue. So there's a lot of reasons for support. Like maybe we should talk about unions more. And I'm not talking about a Counter-Strike union. I'm just talking about real life working unions.
Exactly. That's perfect. So this is a really big question. This is really off the cuff because I think it's important. And so I'll start with Moritz, but if anybody else wants to answer after him, please do. We're talking about 2 things right now. We're talking about, when you think about law, it's this term that can be very frightening, right? So if you're a student, or if you are a young professional gamer or a young aspiring gamer, or you're looking to start your own esports organization, you may not even have the funds to be able to think that you can afford a lawyer. So talk about some of the ways that you guys and ladies have ensured that you can impact that of a individual who is looking to be a part of this industry by making sure that they have everything buttoned up. But this also is helpful for the younger individuals who are looking to be lawyers in this industry to figure out ways that they can actually adhere and be able to take their skills to apply it to individuals who may have a huge budget and also individuals who may not have as much budget. How do you guys and ladies engage with those different levels of budgets and support?
So I think I was supposed to start. I think this is many different levels. One thing maybe is associations, which are popping up here and there. I think you can do a lot of good work in there for all kind of budgets, for bigger interest budgets, but also for the smaller ones. A lot of education, like we do with this panel, or Justin with his book. And maybe as another way to go would be Nepomuk's union, which we kind of see more and more, which also a bit relates to the associations. And we don't have that much in Germany or Europe yet, but I think it's much more common in the US, are college or university level events and industry. We have a lot to catch up there here on our side of the pond. But I think that's about it. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I just learned that. Anybody else?
Maybe one thing. Yeah.
No, you go.
Ladies first.
Oh, okay. I'll take you on that. I've been an academician for the past 25 years, believe it or not. So I literally have been teaching on the collegiate level since 1997, 24, 25 years. And so for me, you know, I'm going to go back to the educational, the content provisions. So you want to make sure that those students are exposed to the content in regards to sport law. I actually teach a sport law class. I developed a sport law class, you know, years ago. And so for me, it's been exciting to actually see those students come into the space. I was actually contacted by a student about 2 weeks ago regarding her interest in actually attending law school. And she's actually in our esports and gaming management program. So this is the perfect conversation, as I was telling her, to just go on, get into it. You know, she's not a gamer, but she's very passionate about esports and gaming as a actual career option as well as an industry. So I think it would be a great contribution to the entire esports and gaming ecosystem to have more lawyers that are actually trained in esports and gaming.
That's awesome. Anybody else want to take it over?
I mean, one thing you probably would not think as a first, but I mean, you need to advise a legislator. And I'm not talking about lobbying right now. I'm talking about being neutral as a consultant. Because there's a lot of things, a lot of pressing legal issues, for example, the nonprofit status, which is a huge thing in Germany, especially. If they do not have money, but they want to grow, they need the nonprofit status and everything that comes with it. So you really have to talk to the legislator, to the lawmakers, and really educate them about the situation as well. So it's not only helping those young people with stars in their eyes, and it's also talking about the big institutions.
Yes, for sure. So I have one last question, and I think this is also just as important. And this is something I want to direct towards Justin. So Justin, you know, there are esports programs that are popping up on university campus. They're popping up. They're getting there. They're starting to grow. They're starting to learn. You know, what are some of the things that you've seen with, you know, being a university professor in regards to law and the business of esports? What are some things that you didn't expect that surprised you in regards to that of impacting individuals within this space from a student perspective, or some things that you're looking forward to in regards to that of building out programs for universities? So therefore, other entities out there can really identify the value of creating these programs on college campuses globally.
Yeah, this semester I'm teaching an undergraduate and graduate course at University of North Carolina, Wilmington. It's, you know, a business of esports class. And, you know, it's very unique because you kind of have, I mean, I noticed about, you know, 20 students I have that you have different degrees of, you know, passion. Some people are like super diehard esports fans, and it's like, you know, they live and breathe it. And then some people, you know, they're maybe on the little bit older spectrum, just kind of like understand and kind of have this nostalgic feeling with video games in general. And then there's just people that are kind of like looking at it kind of as almost like an intellectual thing where it's like, wow, we're learning about, you know, video games and Nintendo and League of Legends and StarCraft and Fortnite. And you get to kind of talk about all these really fun and exciting things. So I really kind of think that, you know, more universities are going to start adopting it. I know that, you know, some here in New York are looking at building out some programs to start offering classes. And a lot of it has to start with getting clubs and just really kind of seeing what your students feel about it and seeing like how passionate they are about it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm noticing is how the student body engages with the content and the subject matter.
That's awesome. So we're going to close this panel out, but I want to make sure that everybody that is part of this panel leave with one word of advice for students that are looking to enter this actual space. If you had to do one, if not, do 2 words, but really make it short, concise, and just really make it impactful for individuals that can say, wow, I really want to be a part of this industry, whether I want to be the next lawyer, attorney, or whether I want to make sure I protect myself as I am a gamer or someone that is looking to further my career within this space. What will be those 1 to 2 word statements that you will have? We'll start with Dr. Lawson-Williams.
Yes, of course. I'm ready to go. And I have 2 words, purposeful preparation.
Okay, that's awesome. Justin?
Well, I'll go with, it's 3 words, just do it. I think that, the biggest thing, everyone talks about what they're going to do, what they want to do, what they're trying to do. Just do it.
Just do it. Nike. Nepomuk?
Wow, that's tough one. Just also find the right fit. I mean, there are a lot of collegiate programs out there, but really take a look who's teaching there. If there's someone from G2, Fnatic, you name it, yes. but find the right fit.
All right, so we had a 2, 3 word, 4 word. Now, Moritz, you got to have a 5 word for us. Like, what is it?
Oh boy, a lot of things already said. I would say just try it, get into it. I think there's lots of internships actually. They're all open. Just try it out. It's a shorter period and you can find your fit for sure.
That's awesome. So we're going to close it out. Right now, you've been able to participate in the panel for Southern University Law Center 2021 Esports Summit, the future of esports and gaming law. This has been awesome, and I ensure everyone out there to follow up with every individual on this panel. Reach out to them on LinkedIn, social media, identify what they're doing, and ask them questions. Like, this is the purpose. They're spending their time today giving you insight, and they would love for you to reach out to them for questions and concerns and thought processes. It's open, and it's going to be on you to capitalize on the information that you're being provided. So thank you so much for everyone being a part of this panel. Thank you so much for every individual that's participating from a spectator perspective, and we will close it out there. Anybody, thank you so much for everybody tuning in. We're gone.